In this lecture, I am going to discuss about computer memory. After the completion of this lecture, you would be having a fair idea of computer memory and its types. See guys, we cannot expect the existence of a computer system without the presence of computer memory. Computer memory is an integral part of any computer system. Now, let me tell you what is basically a computer memory. Computer memory is similar to the human brain's memory. Like we people have memory in our brain, similarly computer needs memory. So it is used to store data and computer programs. It is basically used to store data as well as computer programs. The computer memory is stored in extremely large number of cells because we need a voluminous kind of data, large amount of data. So there are extremely large number of cells where memory is stored, and each such memory cell has a unique address. Now we come to the types of computer memory. So basically, broadly speaking, we have two types of computer memory. One is called primary memory, another is called secondary memory. First, let me tell you about primary memory. Primary memory is in fact the main memory of the computer system. Its access is at extremely lightning speed, right? And the reason for its speed being at lightning speed is it is an internal memory. It is quite costly as compared to secondary memory. Then it is much less in amount than secondary memory. In a computer system, it is much less than secondary memory, right? And if we talk about secondary memory, this is used for mass storage. So it's a mass storage media. It stores voluminous data. Very voluminous data can be stored on secondary memory in terms of gigabytes and terabytes. And it is much slower than the primary memory. Again, the reason being primary memory, as I told you, primary memory happens to be an internal memory and secondary memory is external memory. So it is slower than the primary memory. It is much cheaper than the primary memory, right? So now we will talk about the types of primary memory. Primary memory comes in two categories. The first one is RAM, another one is ROM. As you can see, RAM stands for random access memory and ROM stands for read-only memory. Now, RAM is a temporary memory, right? And data will be lost if power supply is put off. If power supply is snapped off when we are working in a computer system, all the data that is present in RAM, that will be lost, right? Data can be processed only in RAM. This is very important point. See, when we people are working in a computer system and processing takes place, you cannot expect the processing of the data without data being resident in the RAM. So first data is put into the RAM, only then it can be processed. Now, in one of the previous lectures, I told you about arrays, stacks, queues, linked lists, trees, graphs, and about variables also. Now, all these data items, they are stored in RAM only, right? So variables, arrays, stacks, queues, linked lists, trees, graphs, and many other data structures, they are stored in RAM only, right? Now, ROM. ROM is a permanent kind of memory. It is not transient, it is not temporary like RAM, it is of permanent nature. If we put the power supply off, data is not lost, right? Data is not lost if power supply is off. Manufacturer of the computer system writes information and hardwired programs using ROM. And this kind of information, data, and hardwired programs, they cannot be overwritten by the users in normal circumstances, right? Now, we come to secondary memory. Okay, in secondary memory, we people store voluminous data, and as I told you, it is an external memory, right? So see, first type that I'm going to discuss is HDD. HDD is an acronym for hard disk drives, right? This is the most commonly used for mass storage. Hard disk drives are most commonly used media for mass storage. In this, magnetic recording of data by magnetizing a thin film on the surface takes place. So recording of data takes place by magnetizing a thin film on the surface. Then comes the turn of SSD. SSD is getting very popular nowadays. The full form of SSD is solid state drive. It is a persistent flash memory. Persistent means permanent. Persistent flash memory. It is much faster than hard disk drives. Earlier it were used for the memory of mobile phones, but nowadays SSDs are getting quite popular with computers also. So you can see, when you see the advertisements of laptops and desktop PCs, you can see that manufacturers, they are mentioning the presence of SSDs in their computer systems. Then comes the turn of USB drives. USB is an acronym for Universal Serial Bus. I think USB is the most common. It is the most common drives used for permanent storage. It is used for writing the data, and whenever you want to remove the data or overwrite the data, you can do it very conveniently. It is extremely popular nowadays. It provides huge data storage despite being physically small. They are removable. They can be put into your pocket or in your bag, or they can be taken to any other place, from one place to another. Then comes this optical drives. Optical drives, they are used for reading and writing voluminous data, but they use the technology of lasers. So laser beam is used to read and write data on optical drives. CDs, like DVDs, Blu-rays, these are the examples of optical drives. Then magnetic tapes. Magnetic tapes, actually these are serial access storage devices. By serial access, I mean to say that if there are n number of records, right, and you want to access a particular record, suppose at the 10th location, and if you are going to access the record at the 10th location, you cannot access it directly. First, you will have to pass through first 9 records. So the access is in a serial manner. So naturally, their speed is slower. So serial access storage devices, and they are much slower, but they can store voluminous data as compared to other storage devices, secondary storage devices. And they are very popular and mostly useful for taking backups of data. As you know, in the companies and big organizations, data is very large, data is huge. So we are required to take the backup of the data, so that if the data which has been stored on the secondary storage device like hard disk or somewhere else, if that gets damaged, we can recover it back from the backup. So magnetic tapes, they are mostly used for taking the backups of data.